So I've got some people still trickling in, but I'll go ahead and get us kicked off, and then some more people will be joining as we go along. Thanks again, everyone, for joining today's special edition of Fundraising Office Hours. For those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Troy, and I lead the Issuer Success team here at Net Capital. Today's topic is how to acquire investors using influencer marketing with BrandPilot AI. BrandPilot AI's technology and services have helped over 100 clients find the right social influencers to tell their company's story to investors. And we're joined by John, their CRO, and Gal, their director of marketing, or the marketing and business development manager, who's also an influencer herself, which will be cool to hear that perspective. A few housekeeping items before we get started here. The first being that this event's going to be recorded, and we'll be sharing it with you along with anyone who's not able to attend shortly after the event. We'll also distribute John and Gal's contact information as well as the next step here to learn more about BrandPilot AI and how they can help you with your campaigns. Number two is going to be, if you have any questions during the event, feel free to drop them in the Q&A feature, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Otherwise, we'll also be leaving some time toward the end for some Q&A as well. And with that, John and Gal, I will let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy. Greetings, everybody. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll kick things off. Can everyone confirm that they can see my screen? Thumbs up. Excellent. Well, yeah, as Troy mentioned, we're with BrandPilot, and so we sort of specialize in influencer marketing for enterprise. And so we're all kind of familiar with influencer marketing. We're familiar with it on typically the B2C side, makeup and fashion and all that sort of stuff. And I've been in the influencer marketing space as a technology founder since 2014. So I've been around a long time doing this. And then what we're doing a little bit differently at BrandPilot is we do influencer marketing campaigns, but they're for more serious enterprise campaigns. So typically we do investor relations, financial services, healthcare. So we're sort of doing more serious influencer marketing campaigns as opposed to, what did I say, Gal? Smash my subscribe button or whatever. So that's not really the kind of work that we do. That's not exactly our. So that's the context for what we're going to talk about. We spend a ton of time in investor relations. Ask any questions you want. I'm a founder. I've raised money, and I know how hard it is. And I know where you're at, and I know how frustrating it can be. And so please feel free to ask any questions you like. We're still fundraising now at BrandPilot. In fact, we're closing a deal that within hopefully 14 days, we're going to go public on a Canadian exchange. And so we're in fundraising mode, and we work with investor relations folks almost every day. So we're happy to chat. The way we've structured it is that we're looking at influencer marketing in stages, and each stage applies to where you're at with your company. So we're going to talk a little bit about when it comes to how am I raising funds to that first $50,000. That's a huge milestone for any new company. Then we've got another stage, stage two, which is really from sort of $50,000 to that $150,000. And from there, you're moving a little bit away from, 1 degree of separation from the person that invests in you, and you're moving out more to sort of the market in general and stakeholders and investors. We don't want to try and cram too much information into one session. So for stage three, when we're talking about how do you go from 150,000 to $1 million, we're going to cover that in a second session. So that's the agenda for today. I've talked a lot. So Gal, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Gal. I'm the marketing and business development manager here at BrandPilot AI, as Troy mentioned. I'm also an entrepreneur, a small business owner, and social marketing expert. Do I consider myself an influencer? By force, not by choice, because I had to market my own business. So I know what it's like, and I'm here to help genuinely. This is what I do in life. I like to help people through authentic marketing and storytelling. So as I said in the chat, and I expect you to oblige, I would love to know where you're calling from. What problem are you solving? Why are you passionate about it? Why did you decide to go down the entrepreneurial route, which we all know is not the easiest? So drop it in the chat, and I will be writing prompts in the chat, and you can answer them separately from the Q&A as we go along. So treat this as a dialogue. rather than us lecturing you. John.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I'm also a crazy startup entrepreneur, and so same deal. I'm the chief revenue officer at BrandPilot, but what brought me here was that in 2012 I founded my own technology startup company that specialized in social media, based here in Waterloo, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, Canada. So that's where we are. And then in addition to, when I started my company, I was actually an MBA student. And so I parlayed that into a professorship. So I own a startup and I'm an entrepreneur. I also teach entrepreneurship at a university here in Canada. So that's what I'm up to. I'm one of the folks in your tribe, and which means I've done all the things: bootstrapped, raised money, pitched my butt off, and and now trying to go public. So we've got it all from the experience side. So like I said, we're going to start on stage one, which is really, for those of you, some of you might be further along than this, but we'll call it that bootstrapping phase. How do you get from $0 to 50,000? So I'll turn it over to Gal.
Amazing. I'm right here in the chat as well as here. So we're going to be talking about the first stage. You got the transition power. Yeah, thanks, John. Next slide. So here, why should you care? Campaigns that already have a significant chunk, and the research found that that significant chunk is 30% of funding within the first week, are more likely to succeed in raising funds. And maybe you've experienced it, maybe it's been hammered to you already, but think of it as social proof in this specific realm. If you see something that has been bought into over and over again versus something that hasn't been bought into at all, what are you more likely to trust? Of course, there's something that's been bought in for already. So that's the first piece of stat we wanted to share with you. The second piece of stat we wanted to share is that campaigns with pitch videos raise 4 times as much money as those without. The reason for that is, again, trust. If you imagine an ad for, I was just seeing something on YouTube, an ad for a dress that's video, and the lady demonstrates the dress and talks about the fabric and shows the cool features versus one single image. What are you more likely to trust? Who are you more likely to trust? Think of video content as a way to facilitate trust and build relationships quickly. That's what we mean. That's what we want to discuss today. Next slide. So we're going to be talking about 3 key points, and feel free to drop in the Q&A any questions that you have throughout. We'll be answering them. And if I'm speaking, John and Net Capital will be monitoring the Q&A. So we're going to be talking about 3 things. The first phase is all about relying on yourself and the close people to you, your network, your friends, your family, your very close advisors that have been helping you. And so the 3 things that we want to think about are face-to-face conversations with those people, so human-to-human interaction. Second thing, video rules. And the third thing is the network effect. How can you leverage somebody else's network to help further your cause? So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about each one. So next slide. All right. The first key point is to rely on your connections, not on the platform. When you are productizing, when you are just founding a company, it's not about, you don't talk about the product when you sell it, you talk about the problem that it solves. And so the same thing here, you want to rely on your ability to raise money first and not about the tech, which is Net Capital, to do the fundraising for you in this first step. You also want to be as disciplined and organized in outreach as you are with your R&D or any other really highly technical, highly repetitive task in your business. So number 1, we recommend using a really simple CRM or an Excel sheet or a Google Sheet to create a tracking system. You need to individually list all people who could potentially support you, have their email address, have their phone number, and have a dedicated column for each of the different stages of the interaction. And we're going to go into those details in a bit. But for example, reached out once, reached out twice. What was the reaction? And I think, John, could you recommend a CRM that you like to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I like HubSpot, but that's expensive, right? So I don't necessarily know if that's the one you want to start with. I think at this stage, an Excel document or a Google Sheets is honestly as good as anything. It gets, just making your life more complicated. At this point, you could probably get away with it. But if you really do want to use a less expensive one, I've heard Sugar CRM is quite effective and inexpensive.
Good, thank you. And then lastly, when it comes to formulating your face-to-face outreach, I want you to think about it not as a one and done project in your business, but as a muscle that you train and a skill that you cultivate over time. So think about any habit that you've been doing that you picked up as an adult. Maybe it's working out, maybe it's drinking coffee, maybe it's something to do with your kids that you've been doing for more than 5 years. Outreach is the same. It's not one time. It's getting used to rejection over and over again. And it will hurt and it will feel like rejection. And it's something that you can get better and expand your capacity for the more you do it. All right, next slide. I'm just going to keep going unless somebody drops a question in the Q&A, which I see no one has. So feel free to do that. I feel like I'm going really quickly. Number 2, creating a pitch video. So creating video is my passion because it had to be. And I wanted to share some of the things I literally did this weekend to create content for my business. Treat this as a short-term, as an investment that might take up a lot of time short-term, but will pay dividends literally in the long term. So I want you to dedicate 1 or 2 days to create a pitch video that captures your passion and your story. So that could be without overcomplicating or overthinking it. 1 day to write a script with your team, get some feedback, and be okay with that script, and 1 day for filming. Key component, it does not have to be professional, but it does have to exist. So a bad video is better than no video. And with these tips here, whatever you do, it won't be bad. It just might be a little bit more amateur than professional. And for startup, it's totally okay. So when you do film your video, I want you to allot half a working day, or 20 takes for you to verbally execute the script, tell your story. The reason for that is that the body physically needs time to relax from performance mode to passion mode. So if you even imagine cutting an onion with a knife, the first time you learned how to do that, who knows how many years ago, it probably looked a mess. Today, you're probably not thinking about it. That's muscle memory. So physically, your body takes a few takes, and I recommend 20 because it's definitely an overkill, in order for your mouth to wrap around the words, in order for your body to relax from being so tense to being like, okay, this is my passion. That's why I started my business. Let me share it with you. This is what you want, but let me share it with you. Number 2, should you do it yourself or hire somebody? You're at the beginning, you don't have a lot of budget. If you have like $1,000 or something in that realm that seems reasonable and doable for you, I really recommend you team up with somebody in your close network that is an apprentice or a novice or just starting out, somebody's niece or nephew, a Fiverr person that you may already have worked with and feel good about, that is physically in your environment, and have that person film and edit, or either both or each of these tasks. If not, you can totally do it yourself. It takes a little bit of effort and time, but it won't be more than those 2 days that we initially talked about. So if you do this by yourself, a good smartphone is all you need. Use natural lighting. So right now you can see the window is behind my screen. If I go like this, I'm sure my face is well lit here, but not well lit here. So you want to position your iPhone or your smartphone in front of your window and use that natural lighting. And then lastly, I would invest about $100 in a simple mic. Make sure that mic connects to a phone and not to a professional camera, but that would really, really upgrade the quality of your video. Any questions so far? How long for the video?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a pitch video, I will also defer to Net Capital with your expertise, but please don't make it longer than 2-3 minutes. Nobody has the time. And if you can't tell your story in 2-3 minutes, then go back and create a script that answers that in 2-3 minutes.
Now, Gal, the question I had asked you when we were practicing was around a lot of people.
We're practicing.
We were saying before. I've seen people want to do animated videos, but you didn't feel great about those.
Animated videos is a screen that's standing between you and your investors. This is a human-to-human interaction. The investors want to know who you are, why you care, and how is it that you're going to treat their money with respect and do everything that you can for this investment to be successful. An animated film might be better when you're raising, I don't know, A or B, and then you have to look very, very, very professional and like you have the budget to create that kind of film. But in the beginning, you don't want to spend your money on that. You really don't. It's more about building relationships. Look how I'm looking at the camera at you, right? This is what you want. You know I'm a human. If I had an AI avatar, this wouldn't have the same impact.
Yep.
And Robert is also asking indoors, outdoors. Outdoors is very loud. So unless you're able to control the sound around you, even with a mic, I wouldn't recommend it. Branding in the back is completely unnecessary. I would just have, like we have here in the slide, a logo at the bottom. And if you need an app that can do this on your iPhone for free, I recommend Perfect Video. It's an app that I've been working with for years. And you only need to pay if your video is longer than 60 seconds. And it's something like $4 or $10 for a lifetime access.
And to confirm, that's to edit video, right?
That's to edit videos. Yes. Thank you for the confirmation.
Perfect.
The app is called Perfect Video. Next slide. Yeah. All right. Lastly, for this part, John, when we were making this webinar, John said a quote: "If you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money." And the reason for that is people, when you ask people for something, the immediate response, unless they're your parents, is to be suspicious. So if you go in and you ask for money, it's a very big ask, right? But if you go in and you ask, hey, what do you think about this video? If it's people in your network, yeah? What do you think about my pitch video? Do you have any feedback? And then you go in and you ask, hey, would you mind sharing my pitch video? It could be really helpful. I'm doing this thing, blah, 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 blah. And then you come in and you ask, hey, thank you for sharing this video. Would you be interested in investing? It would be so helpful, and I think it would be a great fit for your values. So think of it, this whole part that we wanted to talk about, I want you to think of investments and investors. And that's actually where I disagree with the title of this webinar. It's not acquiring investors. It's building relationships with people who want to help you. Just like you don't go out dating and you go on vacation as your first date for a 4-day weekend. You first chat on the phone, and then you maybe like meet for coffee, and then maybe dinner. And after a few months, okay, you're ready to take a vacation. So maybe we don't want those few months to take here, but it's still the point of not coming in with a very big ask right at the start, but building a relationship where they feel like they help you. Because if they feel like they help you, they feel good about themselves. We want them to feel good about themselves with relationship to your company. And then after you already asked for help, for feedback, and for them to share your pitch video with their network, they're already invested in your network, in your company, emotionally. They already put their name on the line by sharing your content. And so making the next ask of, hey, would you be open to investing? Or, hey, I think this could be really cool for you because A, B, C, D, they'll be much warmer. And the whole relationship will be much warmer. So to summarize, once you have your video, share this anywhere you can think of and ask people to repost. So this means your LinkedIn, your WhatsApp groups, your alumni groups, your friends of your parents, your friends, whatever you can think of, share it. Number 2, ask those people after you've cultivated these relationships with them to share that video, and then ask them to invest. Number 3, we're tying it back. Always be disciplined and organized, because once you get to a certain point where you talk to more than 5 people, it's really hard to keep track. questions? I see no open questions.
I had no idea this generation goes on vacation dates after 2 months. That's a new one.
No, I mean, it's maybe.
I'm so sorry. That's amazing. Is that what the new generation is doing?
I don't know, but it was the point that mattered.
I've been married so long, I don't even remember what it was like.
Yeah. All right, next slide. So, key takeaways that we want to summarize for you. Number one, practice, practice, practice. So this goes for being in front of the camera and also goes for reaching out and doing outreach and building relationships. It's a muscle, it's a skill, it is repetitive. Number two, start getting used to video. It's going to serve you and advance you a lot faster than staying behind the screen and presenting your company. In the beginning, you are the company. No matter how you try to cut, slice, or dice it, in the beginning, you are your company. And this is the beginning part. So lean into that, make it your own, make it about your mission, and always talk about why this is important for you and why this is important for other people. And number three, ask. You got to get comfortable with asking for help, whether it's sharing, whether it's funding. Always ask your friends, your family over and over again to do as much as they can that they feel comfortable with. Okay.
That's great. And Gal's light is much better than mine. Look, I can see now I'm learning.
I just see Robert had a question. Is it okay to share the video before the offering is open? No compliance issues. So I don't know what your offering is and what the compliance issues are. Do you mean the offering as net capital platform being open to invest?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, I will defer to Troy.
Yeah, I would say, Robert, that you're welcome to create a video and share it as long as you don't mention that you're going to be raising soon, that your net capital offering is going to be live soon. But you're still welcome to lay the groundwork for that and start building your list of investors, but don't mention you're going to be going live, anything about net capital, nothing along those lines. So if you also, Robert, want to share what that outreach is going to look like as soon as you're done with your pitch, definitely feel free to send that to us beforehand. But yeah, just make sure not to mention you're doing an offering, net capital, anything along those lines. But creating it and starting to build those lists is always a good idea.
And I'll just add one last thing before I hand it over to John. This might be just your first video out of many. So if you already have something prepared that you're excited to share with everything that Troy just said, and then use that momentum to do an even better video when it's time to launch the offering. Yeah.
Very cool. So now we're going to talk about stage 2, which would be you've moved out from those personal connections, one-to-one type of fundraising, and you're moving out to a little bit more, right? You're going into maybe certain groups, early stage venture companies, trying to meet strangers to invest in your company. So that's what we're going to focus on here. So this is about, building presence and credibility beyond yourself. The people that know you trust you because, they have a personal relationship with you. It goes back to everything Gal said before. It's all about building trust. Here, you're starting to build brand trust and brand credibility. So we're going to talk about social media, how you build your channels and post. We're going to talk about a term we're calling evangelist, right? So it's 1 degree of separation who are in your market. And then we'll talk about how you can leverage early influencers to do some small trials and start to get some visibility through influencer marketing. So the one we're going to start with is building your own social channels. So you're going to have to sort of get started in a way that really tells the passion of your story. So if you're early stage, the details of your company are often not as exciting or interesting or as developed as the reason you're doing it and the passion for it and the early traction you have. So that's sort of what we want you to focus on. Getting started, our advice is to focus on maybe 2 to 3 social channels, LinkedIn being a must. That's where investors go, and that's where people go for sort of serious information when they're looking at a company. But if you try and do too many channels at once, it just becomes a bit more of a headache than it's worth. There's diminishing returns on that. So start a little bit focused. And then when you're starting, create from a place of passion. And focus on the problem you're solving. A lot of times, the big mistake we certainly make in sales is we talk about what we do very, very quickly. And instead, what a lot of times, even at the investor level, people wanted to hear, do I understand? Do you understand the problem that you're solving? Where does it exist? Why does it exist? Do you understand firsthand that people feel that problem? And so that's what you sort of want to focus on content-wise starting out. And then we talk about it working smarter, not harder. What we're going to talk about is how you can use long-form video and then chop it up and use it in multiple places. And so that's sort of our best practice is start small with a couple of channels, focus your messaging on the passion, and don't forget to create tons of content around the problem and why you're solving it. And then we'll talk a little bit more about video here. The example I wanted to give would be a YouTube video. So if we were to create sort of a long form YouTube video, 6-8 minutes, talking about ourselves, the problem, where it exists, and then how we're solving it with our startup. Sure, it's going to take a while, and Gal gave you all the advice on how to do it, right? Take a few hours, make sure, or a couple of days, make sure you let your body relax so you do a good job presenting. But now we've got this YouTube video. What do we do with it? Well, one of the things is we can push that YouTube video away from YouTube and now into those other channels that we suggested you set up, LinkedIn being one of them, obviously. But then what else do we want to do with this? Well, you can actually, there's tons of services out there. You can actually use the transcript of your YouTube video and turn it into blog content instead of having to rewrite your blog. So that's another great example of how you can take that and do something with it. The other piece is now the audio from that video can now be just stripped, and that can become a podcast that lives as content in your ecosystem. Then you can also post it, you can post that video to LinkedIn, but you can also do a LinkedIn article there. So now it's a blog plus the video with the transcript. We're getting lots more content out there. And then finally, you can chop that video up into smaller pieces. Take each, of the 6 or 8 minutes, take the different chapters of the narrative, maybe just focused on the problem, maybe focused on your history. Break that into smaller content that can be pushed out to those other channels. So Instagram stories, YouTube shorts, I think it's called, and TikTok. So those are some examples of what you do with long form content. I'll pause for a second to see if anyone had any questions in the chat. I don't have the chat open, Gal, if you don't mind. We're all good? Perfect. So the next thing we're talking about are these evangelists, these people that can help you tell your story. Gal and I are here representing BrandPilot. It's an awesome company. We do great work. But of course, I'm going to say that to you. I work at BrandPilot. Like the whole point is that it would be a lot better if there was somebody else here who didn't work at BrandPilot saying, yeah, what John and Gal do is really important and it's really good and you should listen to them. So that's the point of these evangelists is how do we get other people to help us tell our story? And it's still a content game. So you're asking people to create content for you. And that is a big ask for some folks. So the advice we frequently give folks at your stage is do as much of the work as possible to make it easier for them to say yes. So examples of evangelists would be those early stage customers that maybe you did your market validation interviews with. Who are those folks you met to try and figure out that product market fit? Can we go back to them and say, hey, do you mind if we, work together? I would love to feature you as, to help us tell our story. The people you're talking to might not be comfortable on video. Gal mentioned that already. And so that's what we're saying. The advice here is really around that. How can you get evangelists to help you? So book a virtual or physical meeting with them, but also prepare a script in advance. It goes back to what we said before. The more heavy lifting you do, the easier it's going to be for them. So have sort of a script or questions prepared in advance. Don't just wing it. The other piece of advice I really think is important is conduct the interview twice back to back. Book enough time to do it twice. And until you've done a bunch of these yourself, you won't understand why I'm saying that, but I promise you this is a good piece of advice. Everyone's nervous when the camera goes on, everyone. And so the first time you go through it, the responses, the performance of that person, their heart rate's up, it could not be as good as the second time around. So what I always like to do is I let them know in advance, hey, we're going to do these interviews. We're going to do the interview questions twice. And then in the second time, almost always the answers are, in some cases, more calmly given. In some cases, they're more thoughtful. They're more elaborate when it needs to be. And so that's our best practice there is be prepared to help these people do their best performance. And the best way you can do that is do it twice. and then record the footage and edit the videos and post it, and then follow up to make sure that your influencer or your evangelist post that video as well. You want them helping you tell the story. And so there's a lot of things you could do. You could have people talking about you as a company, you as an entrepreneur. Could be having people, the one I would love is potential customers or existing customers talking about the problem and how you're helping them solve it, or how you would help them solve it if you could raise this money. So that's content that we think is really, really powerful. I'll pause for a second.
I want to jump in and just clarify how this is different from what I talked about. Stage one, you have your one video or two, and you're asking people to share that video that you created. Stage two, you're going in with a bigger ask, and you're saying, hey, could I make a video of you? So I just wanted to differentiate that.
No, it's a really important question. The first one's the content you create being disseminated, and this one here is actually getting stakeholders involved, who are part of the project, part of the community, anyone who could help you tell your story. So the example we gave is this, and I'm going to share I'll share this with you. Apollo, I have friends that work at Apollo. So this is a wearable. It induces vibrations in your body to help do everything from lower heart rate to relieve stress. And so when they got started, one of the first things they did was leverage people in their tribe, people who were sort of part of that community that they were inserting themselves in to help tell their story. So,
hey everybody, it's Dr. Joe, and today I'm going to show you how to relieve stress and anxiety.
I'll pause there. Can you hear the audio? Okay, perfect.
With wearable technology. So let's get started. Disclaimer alert, disclaimer alert. So as some of you might know, there's a lot of wearable technology these days, but a lot of wearable technology actually just tracks things. It tracks your heart rate, it tracks your heart rate variability, it tracks your exercising and things. But one of the coolest things that I've seen recently is the Apollo and the folks at Apollo.
So this one here wasn't specifically done for fundraising, but you get the idea of this is like how much more powerful it is to have an expert talk about you and your product, and it just adds so much more credibility. So that's the sort of content we were thinking of when we were making these suggestions. And then finally, our third step here is going to be start to experiment with influencers. The difference we're making between these two groups is evangelists are probably folks that you've met in person. They're mentors, they're market leaders you've had a chance to connect with already. There's probably a little bit, there's maybe some relationship there between you already. When we're talking about influencers, we're really talking about finding people on social media who are talking about the things that you are, that your company is involved with, have an audience that you want to reach. So it's a bit more, 2 degrees of separation. So you want to align your brand with authority figures who are passionate about what you do, whether it's solving the problem. They might not know what you do, but they're passionate about trying to solve that problem. And you got to start getting used to, marketing as an essential expense. This is something you've got to do right from the beginning, from fundraising to as long as you want to drive revenue. So piece of advice we give here, the best way to get started is to really do some great social search to find out who are these folks that are talking about your industry, the problems you solve, who are the ones out there speaking it. Follow those people. Make sure you're commenting, getting on their radar, being part of the conversation on social. One of the things that will help you do that is you find a tech tool that does social listening. So if you're not familiar with that term, which I'm assuming everyone is, it's this notion of we're going out into the social platforms and trying to figure out what people are talking about, either by filtering, the hashtags they use, the keywords they use, and then you start following certain accounts that talk about certain things that you're interested in. And then it's best to allocate some budget for influencer experimentation. So the question everybody asks me always when we have these conversations is, how much should I pay an influencer? And so there's no great answer for that, but this is sort of the best way I can prepare people to think about it. Is the main variables that are going to determine how much someone wants to be paid for content creation. Because at the end of the day, it is content creation. It's going to be how popular they are, what size of a following do they have, and how complex is the content you're asking them to give. So for example, if we had someone with a very, very small following and all we wanted to do was repost something we created, a picture of our product or something, That doesn't have to be a real expensive ask. You can see why that's not super expensive. And on the flip side of it, if we found someone who's got millions of followers and we want them to go to an event and create a 6-minute long video for us, you can imagine that gets quite expensive. Where we end up recommending people spend most of their effort, and where it usually makes work, where it works for the campaigns that we do, is when we find smaller creators who might not have an enormous audience, but they create really good content and it's really specific for your target market. Finding those folks, those smaller influencers, and having them create long form content. That's where we see the best bang for your buck and ROI here. The reason you can do that is because the money you save from trying to pay someone with a huge following, you now simply take the content that smaller creator has built for you and then push it out using some paid boosting. So, instead of paying someone, $3,000 to create a long YouTube video for you, can you find someone that'll do it for $700, and then you can take another $700 and then do sponsor that post online. And you could probably still reach the same amount of impressions. So that's what we tend to recommend when it comes to influencer hiring. So I'll pause for a second in case there's any questions.
Not a question, John, just trying to be aware of the time as we discussed.
Yes, we are at. Yeah, perfect. So takeaway lessons, it's all about content. Create content from a place of passion and self-expression. Don't just post things because you feel you need to post it. Gone are the days of filling social media with things to make sure you had something every day. Really, at this stage, passion's key. Make it easy for your evangelists to help you. They're excellent, excellent resources for the content you create. Just make sure you do everything you can to make it easy for them. And then go out of your way to find out who on social is talking about your world, right? Get into the Reddit groups, LinkedIn groups, find out who's talking. Social media tools can help you do that. And then when it comes to influencers, bigger is not always better. In fact, smaller creators can create just as good a content, but they'll cost less. So why not get a smaller creator to do longer form content? So that's the piece of advice we have for you in stages 1 and 2. Before we move on, we'll do a final gut check on questions.
Yes, this webinar is being recorded.
Excellent. So we do want to help. We're here to help, and we've got a couple of special offers that you can take advantage of for the attendees of this webinar. So at BrandPilot, we're sort of half technology. We've got an influencer marketing platform with 300 million creators on it. You can do social listening on it. You can reach out and engage these folks. You can run your own influencer campaigns. You can do all the things you need to in our platform. And also, we're a services agency. So we actually go and do the work, finding the influencers. So for any attendees of this webinar, we've got a 30-day free trial of our influencer marketing platform. So search our 300 million creators. All of our major platforms are there, tons of filters, great place to do social listening. And that's a great place to sort of get started on your own. For those of you that are very serious or wanted to think about doing a campaign and wanted someone to actually do the work for you, we do influencer marketing campaigns. Small campaigns can run anywhere from somewhere between, $8,000 all the way up to $20,000. But what we're recommending for you are smaller ones, right in the area of around, sort of 3 creators, we would think. So we're offering 40% off of our custom influencer campaigns that we would normally sell to larger organizations. So that includes us finding the influencers for you, building a list, you choosing them, us working with them on creating content for you. We do the negotiations and the contracts. We've even got errors and omissions insurance, which is important if you're doing fundraising. And then we can also help with the content boosting. So happy to talk about that. The best way to take advantage of our offers is if you would like to take advantage of the 30-day free trial from BrandPilot, there's a link here that will be sent to you. It'll be in the deck as well that you can go and sign up and try. And then also if you wanted to, and then for the trial, you don't put your credit card in, you try it. It's okay. I hate those things. I always forget to cancel and then they bill me. So that's not the case here. But then if you'd like to take advantage of our custom influencer campaigns, those are really a pretty meaningful conversation that we need to have. So the best way is to reach out to me. My email address is there, or if you want to just go ahead and book a meeting directly in my calendar, I'll have my Calendly link sent to you as well. So I know we did take a little bit longer, but I think it was some great questions. So we'll pause and turn it over for any questions people have saved to the end.
Steve is asking, are your influencers part of BrandPilot AI, or do you search for influencers that have expertise in the startups area? So
yeah, that's right. Our approach is we don't, so there's a couple of there's two types of influencer marketing companies out there. One have like a roster of people that they've got, the 200, 1,000 people that they've rostered. That's not what we do. So we use our technology to go and find whoever it is you're trying to look for, and then we work with them individually. So we don't have a set roster that we work with. We go in and use, all of our search power to try and find the folks that are best for your campaign.
I see some also questions in the chat. Let's try to keep the questions in the Q&A, but I'll answer what we have. Okay, so somebody asked, Andrew asked, any sports influencers? Yes, I would actually, do we have a second? I want to just show the platform. Yes, sure. Yes, let me share my screen. And then I think you'll have a better understanding. This is our platform. So you can search for your, let's even do college sports, because I think your audience is college. And then you can type in, you can see here, bio in the influencers. So this would be in the bio of the influencers. And here you can start really narrowing down. You will see, okay, you already have a pretty narrowed down list of 2,000 influencers. But what we recommend is using the search filters for, let's get down to like 50 search influencers. So you can control for the age of the audience and what percentage, for example, of that influencer's audience is between, let's go 13 to 25. And you see here, this filter was added. So I'm going to delete this because the AI isn't working all that, but we're going to do this with different filters. So in the interests or in the caption keyword, you can say sports, you can say college or not, but you can really narrow down by interest, by gender, by a language that they speak, the location of their audience and location of the influencer itself, even ethnicity if you want to go there. And then also you can filter by performance. Number of followers is good, but it's not the only thing that matters. Real plays, so that means how much people connect to the content these influencers say. And then you can add them to a list, and we just don't have time to demo everything, but this is the kind of thing we can demo if you book a call with us. You can add them to a list and then email the list with one email, one click of a button. You have AI that will help you create a brief to do the outreach to the influencers and manage everything from there. But I just want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Okay. Lastly, E&O insurance. John, do you want to address that really quickly? Somebody had a question?
Yeah, so because we deal in more serious enterprise campaigns, we pay for errors and omissions insurance, which means if someone is to talk about your product and, we brief them and we tell them what to say, but, humans are fallible. And so there's errors. If someone was to say something incorrectly about your company, there's insurance there against it. So it's not whatever. It's not blatant false advertising, but because we sometimes deal in the investor relations space, we just need extra, we need extra insurance and extra protection. So yeah, all of our campaigns have errors and omissions insurance should someone accidentally say something incorrect during the content they create for you.
And I just want to address one last question in the Q&A regarding, are those investor influencers? So this is going to be something that you decide for yourself. Who is the person that is best to talk about your company and encourage people to invest in it? Is it a person that speaks to retail investors, or is it a person who is in collegial sports, is a collegial athlete, and just has a large following of people that have really deep connection with them and will then support your company because that person supports? Or maybe it's a mix of those two types of influencers and another that I can't think of the top of my head. But it's completely up to you. You can experiment with this platform for yourself and really see what catches your eye. You can see who responds to you, because not all influencers want to respond or do respond or check their email or their DM. And if you decide to run a campaign with us, we can talk about this much more in depth and see what would make sense for your company with John.
Yeah, for sure. And we do specialize a bit in investor influencers, but they're typically for publicly traded companies, right? Those are the ones that would go out and say, hey, you can buy our stock. When it comes to raising seed round, that's not always the right folks, but yeah, we're happy to discuss it.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. I'm sure there's a lot more questions that are gonna come in soon over the next couple hours and couple days, but with that, John and Guy, I appreciate you both joining us today, and just everyone for also attending. Remember, this is only part one of this event, and we'll be sending out this deck and also the recording and also next steps here that John shared along with that very generous discount as well. So we'll be sending all that in our follow-up email to all of you and everyone else that's currently raising. So this is part one. Stay tuned for part two. We'll get that scheduled here in the next couple weeks and then send that to you all as well. And we'll cover stage three. Today was only stage one and stage two. We'll cover stage three stage three in part two of this event. That being said, thanks again for everyone attending. John, Gal, thank you for being here. If there are any other topics, questions that you all have, whether about John and Gal themselves, about BrandPilot influence marketing, we're happy to introduce you to their team. Other than that, we look forward to the next event, and thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I enjoyed getting to know you in the chat. I dropped my Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn with this name. My Instagram is different. Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thanks again, guys. Thanks a million.